And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We're here every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time. I'm your host, Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a 27-year talk radio host coming to you live every week from Los Angeles, California. This show is about humanity. It's about spirituality. It's about creativity. And it's about passion. It's about being your best you and then inspiring others to do the same in this big, beautiful world. And it may be my show, my friends, but it is definitely always your experience. My guest today is a wonderfully talented musician, author, actress, sculptor, a spiritual being, a very darling friend of mine, and somebody I'm proud to call my spirit sister. I'm so proud to have her here today. Please welcome to the show, the wonderful Cherie Currie. How are you, my friend? It's great to have you here.
So good to see you, Sheena. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. It's interesting, right? I mean, I know you were blessed to have a very big family. I have no family. I had my mom and that was it, and then nothing. So for me, I've built my family, and I know you've done a lot of that too. It's interesting how we're starting to acknowledge spirit family and chosen family as real family in our world, which we didn't for so long, right? And I think that's such a beautiful thing. My best friend's in the hospital and she's very ill. And I called to talk to her nurse and I said I was her sister. So the nurse went and asked her if she had a sister and she was all doped up and of course said she didn't. And she came back and said, how are you related to her? And I said, look, I'm not related by blood, but I'm related by life and love. And she's my sister. And the nurse said, oh, okay. And then started telling me everything that was going on with her. And I thought that showed such a human evolvement, that we're beginning to look past blood and legality and only those two things meaning family, right?
Of course. I mean, you know, when you adopt children, I mean, it's you're not related by blood, but you know, my dad, Don Currie, adopted my older sister Sandra, and to him there was no difference. You know, he loved all his kids the same. And that's the thing, is you can have friends that you love as sisters, as I love you as a sister, as you know, and Susan Olsen and Gretchen Martinucci and you know, Jerry Jewell and Paula, you know, Tricky, and these gals that we all came together, and Pam Apostolo. A lot of people that you just feel this camaraderie and love for, true, deep spiritual love. That you really couldn't live without. I mean, I just can't imagine not having you in my life and some of our other sisters who we share.
Yeah.
So, because I would depend on you, if by chance my family couldn't be reached, I would depend on you to make sure that. So I absolutely agree. And it's such a blessing and a gift. It's a true gift because we meet so many people, and you, Sheena, you have done so many things, you know, that I've come to, and you're surrounded
been a
by
part of
hundreds of people all the time. And when you do find those very special people, I mean, that it's a gift, and you know, it's a gift.
Yeah. It's interesting. When my mom died, she didn't want a funeral. She just wanted to say, throw a big party and invite all your friends. So I did a show at the Hollywood Improv where I was doing shows live anyhow. And all the guests were people that she had loved and admired when I was little. And we did a toast to her, and my friend sang Danny Boy, and another friend made candy for her. And it was funny because everybody was cheering for her and crying. 200 people, right? It was sold out. There were only 2 people except for me in that audience that had actually met her. They were just people that knew of her because they knew me. And I think that was one of the most beautiful nights of my life, that many people shared in the beauty of my mother and the sadness of her passing, even though they didn't even know her. And I think that's something beautiful the internet has given us, that we now can have relationships with people that, we never have met. And that's okay, because you don't have to meet face to face for your souls to have a moment together, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely true.
And
And knowing you and all the brood, that we put together. I mean, that really opened my eyes to something I'd never experienced before. So,
yeah.
And again, you've said this to me before, but if your heart is open, you experience relationships in such a different way. And that's the sad thing, is I can tell when someone's heart is closed, and
Sure.
it comes from insecurity.
Yeah.
You're not feeling good about yourself, your past, how you were treated growing up, all these really damaging experiences that, and isn't it funny, because as we grow up, we remember the times when I remember my stepfather, God rest his soul now, when he turned to me when I joined the Runaways, and he said, "You're never going to be anything.
Oh,
You're never going to make it." And not only that, the dean, and I think her name was Diane. I can't remember, because I used to remember it very well, but I remember Sister Rosemary Lewis, that used to hit me with the ruler because I was left-handed. You remember names, right?
Right. How dare you? The devil was in you, in your left hand that was dominant.
Oh, I'll tell you. I mean, I was only a baby. I was 5 years old, and I stood up finally. I said, "If you hit me with that ruler, I'm going to hit you back." And
Good.
You know what? I was expelled from St. Cyril's Catholic school, which was such a great thing. But you remember the negativity, and the dean of Mulholland Junior High School also was one that turned to me and said, "You are never going to amount to anything."
Yeah.
And so I loved, after I was in the Runaways, I was on the covers of all these magazines. I just bundled a bunch of them together. I went to Mulholland. This was long after I had left. I don't know, 3 years after I had left that school. And I put them in her box with a little note that said, "From the gal who would never amount to anything."
Right. Yeah.
But those are the things that we remember, and those are the things that scar us, that we never forget. And that's one thing that I've always wondered, why, that those are the things, the voices that will come are usually voices, like when I'm carving or whatever, there's always a voice. They're not going to like it. You're not doing this well enough. They're going to laugh at you. Why is that? I mean, I don't understand, but it's so real. And we always have that voice telling us that we're not good enough.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that is the difference in our spiritual self, right? Because we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So our soul, which is connected to spirit, tells us everything's going to be okay. But then the little monkey brain, right, which is rooted in the three-dimensional world, gives us the doubts and tells us that we can't do it. And that's why I think life is really a series of unlearning, right? You learn about some things, but you unlearn about other things, because we're all put here perfect with all of everything that we have when we're home. We come to this earth with all of that, and then human beings talk us out of so much of it, right?
Talk us out so much and talk us into so much. Like these stupid boobs of mine. I never wanted implants. I was a fitness trainer. I felt I was in such great shape, but my twin and my older sister had both gotten them. And I was very fit. And my twin turned around and said, "You look terrible," because I was just more muscle than I would. And, she goes, "You really need to do something about that. You need to get it." And you know what? That crushed me. And I went and got the stupid implant. I've hated them from the minute they went in. And at 62, I'm thinking, how can I get these things out? But again, it's the negativity. And as we grow older, we learn we can tell when someone walks into a room if there's somebody that's going to make that makes us uncomfortable or whatever. We know that that's somebody that we need to keep out of our lives. That's what I've learned.
Right. But that takes time, right? It takes years on the earth to learn to differentiate that way. And that's part of the unlearning. And I think we're still doing that. I mean, my goal for this year, because I kind of make like a spiritual goal for myself every year. And this year it's to just stop apologizing for myself. Because there's always somebody who tells you, why did you do that? Why are you doing that? You know, if you do that, it upsets people. You know, if you do that, it upsets people. And for me, it's always been, if I'm giving too much, if I'm sharing too much, if I'm doing too well, these are all the horrible acts I've committed that I need to fix. You know, don't shine too bright, and don't, you're making us all look bad because you're working so hard. And I'm just, as I approach 55 in almost a little over a month, I'm just done. I'm done apologizing for myself. I'm now just going to do my thing and give 150%, which is what I like to do, and love my friends with reckless abandon and love the world, and just stop caring that there are those that upsets, because it's really not my problem. And I wonder why I've always made it my problem.
I believe truly that those people that said that to you, they are because you have your path. They are the stones on your path that you have to step over, but you got to keep going. But they are the stones that are thrown onto your path that, again, I mean, I have never, that I remember, ever turned and told someone, don't do that, you shouldn't do that.
No, me either.
I mean,
no,
never. And I've come to the point in my older years, my twilight years, our golden years, I guess, that I just choose not to associate. I don't choose to be a people pleaser anymore, because that's something I think you and I both have been.
Oh, yeah, too much.
For one reason or another, you know, guilt for some success maybe in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've both worked very hard for the things that we have, but
sure,
you know, now it's just to the point that, look, I'm just too old for this BS. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I pick my friends. I cherish my friends, and they pick me, and you know, I cherish that. I really, really do.
Yeah, I agree. And when Cherie was talking about the brood, that's what we call our little group of girls that we one day realized, everybody got put together, right? Because I was doing a charity production of the Vagina Monologues, and I asked you all to be in it because I knew you all from different walks of life, and a lot of you already knew each other. And we had a little get together one night at Cherie's house, and we sort of had this like come to Jesus moment, right? About how throughout our lives, so many icky things that had happened to us had been at the hands of other women, and how women don't support each other enough. And we wanted to create a circle of women that were all very successful and all very hardworking, and went out of our way to protect each other and not throw each other under the bus, or all the things that sadly women do to each other. And it's horrible. We should all be sticking together and fighting the power, but instead we're fighting with each other. And so that's where the kind of the beginnings of our circle came from, was this idea that we're not sisters by blood, but we're sisters by love and by spirit. And we're going to stick together through thick and thin. And we're all very different. And in some ways we believe different things. In some ways we believe the same things. We all have very different backgrounds. We do different things with our lives. But the connection is that spiritually, we all come from this place of wanting to bring a lot to the world and wanting to really love and protect our tribe. And it's been a very magic thing for me. I'm sure it has for you as well. It's nice to know that there are women that you can feel safe with.
Yes. And I mean, COVID, of course, Paula moving away
Sure.
to Georgia, COVID that's kept us all apart.
Yeah.
I was able to see Susan a little bit. She invited me over for everybody. You know, I got to see her apartment, and I had a little bite to eat with her.
Nice.
And Jeannie Russell. We can't forget Jeannie, and Leslie
Sure.
Bomberg.
Yeah.
You know, but COVID was a real wake-up call of how isolated I think so many people were. I know I was. I know that because I mean, I haven't even dated in 11 years, I think now. Happy about that because I really, because the thing is I thought that I really honestly believed that I was not a whole human being unless I had a man in my life.
Right.
And,
well, we're taught that.
I guess, yes. I guess we are. And, still people say, oh, come on, you're going to find, even my wonderful son, Mom, my ex-husband who has another gal and living in Hawaii and, would love to see me with somebody. It's like, well, that's so nice of you, but I wouldn't like to see me with somebody because I'm just not good at relationships. Obviously, I give too much still. That's the one thing that I haven't quite learned yet is how not to give too much. And so to learn and get comfortable with going out to eat alone, that was a big one for me. That always felt very uncomfortable. Now it doesn't feel uncomfortable at all. I mean, I really enjoy my own company.
Yeah,
and
I do too.
That was a huge hurdle. That was a big stone on my path that I was able to scoop up and toss. All these things that we question about ourselves, we have to face it head on. We have to look at what it is, go through the feelings and figure it out because, I don't want to come back again because I strongly believe in reincarnation and all that stuff. I want to learn that lesson.
Yeah, you're done.
Whatever lessons it is, why I'm here, I want to learn them all and move the heck on.
I gotcha. Yeah. My mama was like that. She's like, don't ever expect me to come back, kid, because I'm done. But, I'm the opposite.
What do you think of my hair?
I love it. Look at that.
All cut off the other day.
It looks beautiful.
And the thing is that, of course, it just was something inside of me because, a lot like my older sister, Sandy, she was saying, oh, you're so brave because she's never cut her hair.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, it was something I couldn't not, I had to do it.
I love it.
And I was bored with myself. And when we get bored with ourselves, we get complacent. I mean, it's so great to make excuses why you're not wearing makeup that day.
Sure.
Or why you're dressing all frumpy. That you can get away with that for a while. But then all of a sudden, the thing is it's a reflection of what you feel about yourself, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to start feeling good about you again. And nothing is an excuse. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not saying everybody has to wear makeup because you don't have to wear makeup if you don't want to and you don't believe in it. But you do have to still treat yourself just because we've gone through this isolationist kind of trauma. It doesn't mean that you can't still do nice things for yourself and you can't still be productive. You just have to, it's been a year of redefining what productive means for people that work outside of their homes and not making excuses. I needed the break. I think I needed the break from always being out and always being 15 million places and never really having time in my own head. I needed the time to sort of reevaluate my own head, and I'm very thankful for it. And I needed the time to, be brave. This is a silly excuse, but for, 20 years of my life, everybody I met was going to build me a website. Every time I was so excited because, I'm an Aries, so I get so excited every time. And every time nobody did. It was always an exercise in various forms of flaking every time. So one day I was home with nothing to do because it was a couple of months after quarantine. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go to one of those sites where you can build a site. And I'm just going to make one page that just has my name and my phone number and my email. And then that's going to be it, just so I have some place to route my link to. Well, before you knew it, it was 2 months later and I had built an entire website. And now I consider it my fun project. Like when I have a day where I don't have a million things to do, I'm like, ooh, I can work on the website. Like it's gone from being a burden to like being this little special fun hobby, like people going playing with their train sets in the garage. I realized I could do it. All I had to do was start doing it. And it made me realize that I can do just about anything and I don't have to be dependent on other people. Because I found in my life when I was dependent on other people, the kind of people sometimes that swoop into your life when you're desperate to get something done are oftentimes not the kind of people that you want there, because they've come to sort of take advantage of a damsel in distress, so to speak, right? And I just didn't want to be in that position anymore. I'm happy to work with people if they want to help out with what I'm doing, but I don't need that help anymore. And it's really freed me from a lot of guilt that I carried, because I carry guilt when I ask people to help me with something. And
boy,
you know,
I know, I don't.
Right?
Absolutely. I think that's the only guilt that I ever feel is when I have to ask for help. And it's usually from my son. You know, he's so busy, and you are the busiest girl, I think, not only of all the brood, but I've never seen anybody put together all of these events that you have put together. I mean, if it wouldn't have been for you asking me to come and do vagina monologues, I never would have met a lot of these wonderful gals who are now my soul sisters. Yeah, I'm so appreciative of that.
And you were so good. I mean, you're such a good actor. And I think that being on stage and putting on a show as a musician, I mean, it is a kind of acting, right?
It is.
You're acting as you, but you're still putting on a show. And I think so many musicians we have found, I mean, you know, back in the day when you did Foxes, right? It was so taboo for a musician to also act, or vice versa. But now you see it all the time, because we're learning that, hey, guess what? These musicians are all wonderful actors. And it's storytelling, right? Whether you're singing or talking, it's all storytelling. And if you're a good storyteller, then you just are.
Right. And then you get to evolve it so far. I was so blessed. On Wednesday night, my son asked me to get up on stage at the Troubadour with him. A sold out performance. He was opening for Night Talk. And the gal also, the lead singer of Night Talk, came and did the last verse. But when, you know, it's funny because it's almost easier for me on stage. I'm more comfortable doing that than I have been in the past, just carrying on a regular conversation with somebody. But you know what I've noticed as a gift, and I look at all of these things as a gift, that the more time, the older I get, the more comfortable I am, as we all are usually, in my own skin. And I am not, you know, I'm not pulling my hair over my face, or, you know, or afraid to watch Michael McKeon, who I considered a very good friend back when I did Spinal Tap. He was at Dantana's on Wednesday night, and you know, it was whispered to me, don't you know Michael McKeon? And he was there with just a table full of A actors, and I'm not going to say their names.
Sure.
But I had no problem walking up and saying, Michael, Cherie, Currie. And it was so great to see him. And, you know, when you're coming from, they know, when you're coming from a place of openness, that, you know, it's when it's a joyful experience. It's not and the only time I ever see people suffer is when they don't think they're good enough. They don't think they'll be accepted.
Right.
Just trying to squeeze through that gel of saying, hi, my name is, or do you remember me from? It's so good to have that monkey off my back.
Absolutely. And the desperation of trying too hard, right? The truth is, when you do a project with somebody, or when somebody comes and does a show as a guest like you are today, it's not a whole lot different than, you know, working at a grocery store together. It's a project and you're working on it together. To act like this whole weird celebrity stuff around it. Nothing is that glamorous about working on a set. Nothing is all that glamorous about doing a play when you're doing the work. Nothing's that glamorous about rehearsing for a show. When you play a show, I mean, it's like, you know, who's got the amps and who's putting the mic in the holder, and you know what I mean? It's all very functional work. And then you make this beautiful art, and that's terrific. But to act later like, oh, do I need to be embarrassed? So, how could you walk up to him and just talk to him? Well, he's somebody you worked with. It's no different than, oh, hey, there's somebody that I was the fry clerk with at Taco Bell. I mean, you know what I mean? It's a job, and you were coworkers. And I think people say to me like, oh, you have these friends, and it was, well, yeah, some of my friends are very famous and some of my friends are very not famous, and they're all my friends and it doesn't matter. And we talk about all the same stuff. I mean, I come to your house with a bucket of hummus and we talk about God. I mean, it's not like it's this huge, crazy thing. And I love that. I love knowing that most people are real people underneath. I think that's terrific. And I feel the same way. I have no problem walking up to somebody and saying, hey, you did my show a couple of years ago. And usually they're very gracious and very excited to talk to me because it was an experience, right? Everything we do in life is an experience, whether we're, on a date with somebody or we're on a movie set with somebody. And it's
and when it's a great experience, like people that you've worked with in the past,
sure,
you get to relive the greatness of that day by seeing your lovely face.
Yes.
And so, again, I think that because I can pick someone out of a room that is insecure. I can see it. I mean, people can see. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe only some people can see it, but I can see it like clearly. And, I just want to go over and give them a hug and say, do you know how beautiful you are tonight?
Yeah.
You look so, and that's if I see a beautiful woman, just someone, you don't necessarily have to be physically like a model beautiful. I mean, I see the inside of a person, and I'm compelled to tell them, gosh, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you how great you look today. Or I love your boots, or I love the way you're dressed, or, just even in a Costco. And you know what? Most people will turn around. The majority will be so grateful for that moment, for a stranger to say something that, that who knows, you brighten somebody's day.
Yeah.
But I don't lie. I mean, if there's somebody that, I can tell isn't taken care of, or, it's particular people I'm drawn to say something to.
Yes, I agree.
I don't walk up and down the street, just saying it to everybody.
Right. I was in a Hobby Lobby and I walked up to the manager and I said, are you the manager? And he got this look on his face like, oh God, here it comes. And I said, I just want to tell you that your clerk is wonderful and you have a beautiful store. And he was kind of a little dewy, and he said, can I tell you something? And I said, yeah. And he said, nobody ever talks to me unless there's a problem.
Uh-huh.
And isn't that a shame that we only go to the manager when we're mad about something? If we have a good experience, we say nothing. If we have a bad experience, we can't stop talking about it. And we need to remember that it's just important. Yes, we need to stand up for ourselves when there's a negative experience. Yes, we need to settle it and make it right and get our closure. But how about when there's a positive experience? Don't we need to reinforce that too? Isn't it important to stop and say, hey, thank you when you leave a movie theater to the person standing at the door? Or, I just think we've lost we're so busy now trying to defend our rights, which I think is great. You shouldn't get screwed over as a customer. If something is wrong, you should say. If you order a meal and it's not what you want, it's okay to say. It's okay to defend yourself. But how about when things are great? Say like, you know what, you're a fantastic waitress. This is a great place. I'll come back again. I think we're so worried that we're not going to be heard, that we're forgetting to compliment situations in which we are happy and content. And that's a big spiritual lesson, I think, for us to remember to do that,
I totally agree. And you know what? Growing up surrounded by stars, which I was,
Sure.
if it wasn't being in the Runaways, then, doing movies, I was lucky to do Foxes with Jodie Foster, who became a very dear friend of mine. And Sally,
awesome.
who just lost Sally Kellerman yesterday.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah,
I loved her. I knew her too. She did my show many times. I'm very sad. I did not know that.
Yes. And it's sad, very, very sad. But I've seen so many people in the business that just change. You know, they become famous and they become assholes.
Yeah.
I mean, did you notice how I just mouthed the last part of that?
It was fantastic. It was perfect. Yes.
Should have been
You
holes.
were made for public media. That was beautiful. I love it.
But, you know, I mean, I resent it. I resent it because, and I don't like them. And that's one thing that I'm allowed. I've allowed myself not to like people that take advantage of a gift. And if you have a gift and you have in a almost impossible business for the majority, if you're lucky, and it is luck, I'm telling you right now in this business, it's luck. I'm not saying it's not hard work, but a lot of it is both. Luck. And then to take absolute advantage of it through the years and start believing all the hype, and it changes you. I resent those people because it, like they say, never, what's that saying? If you really like someone, or if you don't meet them, if you really have if you idolize someone, don't meet them, you'll always be
sure. Yeah.
You know what? I get that. I really do. And
I do.
And that's sad. Yeah. That's truly sad, because I have witnessed so many people just become jerks. And it's not just a passing thing. Once it's embedded in that person, it doesn't leave. They stay that way unless something horrendous happens and that brings back their humanity. But I've never seen the difference. I've never seen the difference in people. I mean, to me, like you're talking about a waitress or what. I mean, hey, I cleaned houses for a while. I've been a fitness trainer. I mean, I did things that my dad would say, I'll pick shit with the chickens if I have to. It was like, me too. And it's a humbling, wonderful experience when you truly realize that this is a very fast deal, us being here. It goes by very fast, and we are judged, I believe, by a higher power when we're finished with this. And and some people, I'm looking forward to them meeting that maker and getting the shit kicked out of them because they deserve it.
Yeah, I like to say
with respect. I mean, everybody has a bad day, right? Everybody will have a bad day, but you treat people with respect and love the way you want to be treated. And that's the one thing that my dad, Don Currie, taught all of us kids, is you treat people the way you want to be treated. And I've lived by that rule. I truly have.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And it's interesting how so much when people are like that, there's a weakness inside of them, like bullies, right? That, there was a time where there were just so many a-holes in our business. And then the internet came and people started ratting out people that, I saw this guy on the set and boy, was he a jerk. And suddenly being called out from under the rock, right? A lot of them changed their behaviors because they were scared if they acted like that, they were going to get called out by somebody on a set. And I think the beauty of the internet is it's corralled a lot of that ego, because people started not wanting to work with people because they heard they were jerks. And if they were jerks, people would go on the internet and say they were jerks, and it would reflect on their band or the movie or the TV show or whatever it is. And it's interesting how humanity can corral itself. If we all stay in the light and we all work for good and we all have manners, we can shape those that are not acting like that.
And
but you have to be positive.
And we are not better than anybody else. That is an absolute fact. Now, I'm not talking about serial killers here, though. There are some people that I would have absolutely no problem flipping that switch on old Sparky.
You and me both. Yes. Me too.
Brought back old Sparky. or, chambering
Or news party.
around. If that was what had to happen, I would have
Sure.
no problem with some of these people that are on this planet. But the thing is that, you know what, that they are very few and far between. Most of us walk through life every single day, still with a little apprehension of the unknown and the fear of, especially getting older, of, and all of our friends start passing away. I lost my mother last year during
So sorry,
COVID.
sweetie.
And but it was a good thing because she had spoken my name in 6 years, and dementia, same as Sally. I mean, and sometimes you just have to ask yourself, why? My mom was such a God-fearing gal, went to church every week and prayed before every meal. And here she suffered the agonies of the damned for 6 years. And, that will sometimes, that has at times made me sit back and think, why did that happen? I would think that as a spiritual person, what lesson did she have to learn to sit in that body where she couldn't even comb her own hair or brush her own teeth or converse with anybody? That to me was a purgatory that me and my family had to witness far too long.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so
I agree.
That was a relief to see her take off, because I know that she's having a ball now wherever she
Free.
is. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think I've told you this, but when my mom suffered an episode of hypoxia in the last year of her life, and so it was like, having brain damage, right? Not enough oxygen to your brain. Right. So it manifested sort of like dementia. And it was, she was a very smart woman, had 2 master's degrees, was brilliant. She did not like not being in control of all of her faculties. So when the time was coming that her heart was failing, they had her on a BiPAP machine, and I said, can I talk to her? And they took her off the BiPAP, and I said, what do you want? And she said, I just want you to get me out of here. So I put her in palliative care. And as I was sitting there holding her hand as she was passing that night, one of the nurses said, this must be so terrible for you. How are you going to deal with it? And I said, and I referenced you. I said, I have a friend whose mother doesn't even know who she is and is basically trapped in a body. And I'm so thankful that my mom is going home before it gets to that.
Yes.
So
exactly.
You know what I mean? So there are worse things than going home, because we do get to go home and then we're free again. Unless we choose to come back here, which I seem to always do, and I probably will again. Unlike you, you'll have to guide me from there, because I'm sure I'll come back.
Well, I will say one thing that I'm so happy about with Jerry Brown. I was not a fan of Jerry Brown's whatsoever.
Sure.
Not the first time or the second time he was governor, but when he allowed people who have a terminal illness, to me, dementia is a terminal illness. It truly is. Allows us to make that decision for ourselves before it gets so bad that, that we can trot on before the family is hoping it happens, where
Right.
we're waiting for it to happen after years and years and years. And the way that they have dealt with this kind of thing as far as care and the cost, and a lot of people, can't even afford the cost when you're dealing with a loved one that is terminally ill. I know the way I'm going. If unfortunately it runs on my mother's side of the family, the dementia aspect of it. And if I realize that that's what's happening to me, I'm going to go see a doctor, get those pills, say goodbye to you and everybody, have a big old party, and check out. So that people remember me for who I am. And I'm not afraid of that at all. What I'm afraid of is seeing happen to me and my family around me.
Sure.
What happened with my mother. And that is something that, I think that is just, it's just a fate worse than death, for sure.
Well, and I think from a spiritual perspective, right, we are given free will on this planet.
Yeah.
So doesn't part of that include ending our own life at any time we want to? I'm not saying it's a good idea. And when you go home and you have your evaluation, Oftentimes you'll have to come back and redo those lessons that you didn't learn. But I think you should be able to have a right to go home when you want to go home. And
Well,
especially when you're sick,
to be honest,
especially when you're old.
I mean that if you have a terminal illness, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're suffering from depression, things like that, I would really, that would be a tough one. I mean, we
Yeah.
have,
Please don't.
suicides.
You're needed here. Yeah.
Right. And that, unfortunately, look, we've all suffered from depression.
Sure.
You and I have discussed that, at length.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
and,
Irish. I'm
oh, what a
genetically
mistake.
predisposed.
Huh?
Yes. I said I'm Irish. I'm genetically predisposed to depression.
And I'm Irish as well. Irish
Right.
Welsh. And that's very, very true. We are predisposed to that. And what a waste it would have been, had I acted out on any of during my very, very depressed times. So, I mean, I think that courage is the utmost importance if it is, to get mental help.
I agree.
But if it's the physical body that's going, and you don't want to put your family and friends through a long, awful experience
And
where
yourself.
that's what they remember.
Yeah. Yes.
And financially, it becomes an enormous burden. I'd like to leave something for my kid.
Yeah, I would like to leave something for my chosen family. Yeah,
Exactly.
And I'm in no way saying, hey, you have your right to kill yourself at all. I mean, I think that's what you're needed here unless you are old or sick, old and sick, or very sick and not old. But I don't ever want anyone to think that if that is a decision they have made, that somewhere they're going to wind up rotting somewhere and there's going to be pitchforks and flames and anger. Because when we pass, there's no anger. I mean, I'm sure if you're a serial killer or you've put kittens in a sack and thrown them in the river, then you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. But just because you were unhappy or mentally ill or thought you couldn't take it anymore, you'll have to come back and learn those lessons again, but no one's going to be punishing you in any way. I think people are so worried they're going to be punished for everything. And the true light of spirit, right? It's beautiful. It's hard sometimes to figure out why we have to learn the lessons here we have to learn, but that doesn't make the light of spirit any more beautiful. And I think as artists, right, we see that when we perform, when we write, we co-create with spirit. Like, for instance, if you're because you're a brilliant chainsaw carver, Cherie, if you're looking at a log, right, and you can see the beautiful thing in there, sometimes you just see it. Sometimes somebody has commissioned you to make it. So you almost have to see your version of their dream in there. Do you feel like you co-create with spirit to make that?
Oh, absolutely. And again, I grew up going to the Catholic Church. I never felt comfortable there simply because of the fire and brimstone aspect of teaching. Very, very God-fearing, wrath of hell type of stuff.
Yeah,
and that never felt right to me. But I do have a conscious contact with, I say it's Jesus, because he lived, he was here, he was, I believe, extremely spiritual being.
Yes.
And I do pray, to God before I pick up that saw. Every single time I pick that saw up, I kneel and I pray, because I cannot stand the fact of doing something that dangerous completely and utterly alone. And that gives me courage. And you see, courage is what depression seems to remove, your courage.
Yes. Yeah. And anxiety,
you lose
right?
sight of
also.
it. You lose sight of courage. And that is the one thing that we can't lose sight of it, because that is fundamental for our survival, is courage, whether it's fight or flight. I mean, that is something that is put in us. It's a God-given gift. It's put in us when we're born. We have instincts that I think a lot of people forget, that those instincts are there for a reason. I mean, I have hiked at times, and I could sense that there was an animal close. I mean, I could sense it. I knew it was there, and I was all by myself. And then I go, darn, that was dumb to come all the way out here by yourself. And I knew there was a cat. I just knew it. And sure enough, it turned out that there had been, a cat had been spotted in the same spot just like a day later. So
you mean like a bobcat or a mountain lion? You don't mean like a household cat, like a pet cat?
Yes, not a little kitty cat, a wild creature. But, there's some things that we do that isn't the smartest thing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We put ourselves in peril. We put ourselves in perils. Now, I mean, if I have to do a hike or go alone, so I mean, I do take a 22 with me, because I'm not going to I don't care what the laws are. I don't care that I'm not supposed to carry a firearm with me when I'm hiking alone.
Right.
Because it's not their life in danger. It's mine, and it's my judgment. Right. And you know what? No one's ever going to know I got it unless I have to use it. And that would only be in a life and death situation. But I will never let somebody tell me that I have to die because, because it's a law that some idiot has come up with that says that you can't defend yourself against a wild animal. It's
you
just
must
stupid.
Be eaten by a mountain lion.
Some things are really, we can talk about all the spirituality in the world, but some of these laws and these people that run this country are just damn stupid.
Well, I think that it's hard, right? Because there's so many choices to make in life. And human beings, my mama used to say, are just smart enough to be dangerous. Just trying to figure it out. We're relatively a new species. We're kind of like special toddlers compared to like the crocodile. And so I understand, like I live down here right now where I grew up in Huntington Beach. And it's my house that I will forever be called my mom's house, even though it's mine, is on a little wildlife preserve that separates Pacific Coast Highway from where I live. And I just now told stalkers where my house is. And, the coyotes come out of there in droves. And I understand that the coyotes are endangered. I understand the coyotes just need to eat. I understand they're not allowed to eat the endangered herons in there. So they come out and try to eat people's Pomeranians. So I understand why we're not supposed to kill them. But at the same time, they could kill us. And I think we're all just trying to figure it out. And I think people haven't quite gotten there yet. People aren't really good. People are very good with black and white. They're not very good with gray area.
Right.
And sometimes it's just a gray area.
Well, you've been to my house so many times. You see, you know how tall my walls are, right?
Yeah.
They're very tall. And so when I adopted my second dog, little Layla, this no-kill pound, they came over because I told them that my dogs would be safe, because of this tall wall. They go, well, coyotes can jump over that. And I said, oh, come on. I've owned this house for 24 years at this point. But this was just 3 years ago, before the pandemic, that all of a sudden I'd fall asleep on the couch. I just never thought in a gazillion years that a coyote could get into my backyard, because I always left my back door open. And I fell asleep on the couch, woke up at 3 a.m, and I let the dogs out, and immediately they start barking, a bark that I do not recognize. Yeah. So I come running out, and there is a coyote the size of a German shepherd coming down my back waterfall to get Layla. And little Layla is barking, and I'm running at that coyote at 3 a.m, screaming. And my head is already calculating how I can grab him and pull him into the pool and drown him, because I'm already 2 steps ahead. But I mean, it was such a shock, because everything I had said for 20 years was not true.
Yeah.
And I had to really sit back and say, wow, I was so sure of myself, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
so that door is not open anymore,
Yeah.
and just the other morning, there were a couple coyotes just walking down my street at
Yeah.
10:30 in the morning. And
Yeah.
my elderly neighbor called, and then my pool man, he said, yeah, there's a couple coyotes. And, and again, we, with the fires and everything else, we have to protect the idea that, we've really encroached, and Edison has destroyed so much of their land with these fires. And so, we have to bend and move,
Yeah.
but don't be stupid.
We all have to live together, right? I mean, we all have to make it work. And I think that's a lesson that all of us fighting this same pandemic together, hopefully we're starting to learn that lesson that we all have to live in tandem with the earth, with the creatures of the earth, with each other. We have to find ways to accept each other, even if we don't agree with each other. We still have to find a way to live together and love each other. And it's possible. You can't spend your whole life just preaching to your own choir. We all live on the earth, and we have a right to do so. When I first did my first crazy rock and roll public access show, the show before me was my now very good friend Allison Argrim doing an HIV/AIDS awareness show, and the show after me was neo-Nazis. And so the three of us were in that studio all the time, me with the rocker people and the musicians, her with people talking about AIDS. And this was in the 90s when people were still dying in droves. And then the neo-Nazis would come in, and everybody had to learn to get along. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, or that, I was buddies with the neo-Nazis, but everybody had a right by the rules of the city to do a show there. So we all had to be okay with the fact that everyone else had a right to be there. And even if you don't agree with people, we all still are on the earth together, right? And we got to figure out how we can all make the world a better place, even though we don't all totally agree with each other. And I think that that's something that we are still very much working on as people.
I agree. And one mistake I think that's happening right now, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but forcing a lot of these, issues about inclusion, as far as, trans people, black, white, yellow, it doesn't matter. It never mattered, in my eyes, it never mattered. But I mean, because to me, good people are good people. The only time I noticed was when they weren't a good person. That's the only thing that.
Right. Sure.
But I mean, with even the Oscars coming out with these new rules where you have to have, include, Black, Latina, trans, gay in the movie, or they will not allow it to be put for an Academy Award.
Right.
That to me, now I'm thinking, again, it's almost like The Voice and things like that I thought really kind of screwed up rock and roll, because a lot of young girls and guys that couldn't sing like that said, I'm never going to make it in this business. So because, Mick Jagger probably never would have won on The Voice.
Right. Okay? I agree. Sweetie, we are so out of time. We need to do a whole nother show and just talk about this. I agree with you, but we're out of time. Where can people find you online? And will you come back and we'll do this again?
Oh, well, they can't find me online. Facebook.
Okay. All right.
Facebook,
do that.
And I want to say hi to Amy Jonas, because I know she's watching. She's a wonderful gal. And a lot of my friends, I mean, Clint and Rosalind, and,
awesome.
There's a list.
Hi to you
I
all.
should have made a list. But anyhow, I love you.
I love you, my friend.
I thought it's only been 5 minutes. What the heck happened?
I bend space and time. I'm a wizard. Now you know. The wonderful Cherie Currie. I love you, sweetheart. If you missed any of those links, find me, sheenametalspiritual.com. And if you want to watch all of the episodes of the show, kgradb.com. And until I see you all next week, next Friday at 3:00 Pacific time, seek peace, live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, always raise your vibrations, and know that I love you. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cherie.
Thank you, darling.